Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew. We're in chapter 17, verse 14. We're going to read through verse 21. And Jesus has just been transformed on the mountain, had his conference with Moses and Elijah, and has explained some important things to his apostles. And it had to be such a comfort, such a thrill, such a necessary respite for him to have that moment. Unless we forget how difficult it was to be Jesus, he just about loses his patience today as he comes back down from the mountain. This is a tough episode, and this is a voice of Jesus, a tone of voice with Jesus that we're not used to. We know that he was tempted in all ways as we are, yet without sin. And so we know that Jesus did not sin. And let me always say that taking this tone is not a license for us to take it. I don't preach very long, 23, 25 minutes usually. When I was a younger man, some of the older preachers that liked to preach for an hour, hour and a half, used to say, well, you're supposed to preach a long time. Don't you remember the book of Acts? Paul preached till midnight. And I always said to those guys, yes, and Eutychus fell out the window and died. If you preach too long, somebody could die. And if you're not prepared to raise the dead like Paul was, then get to the point. I mentioned that to say to all of us, if we are prepared to have the discernment that Jesus did and when to use that tone and not to use it, then feel free. But if we don't, let us hesitate and think better of ourselves. Let's read the text. When they came to the multitude, a man came up to Jesus, falling on his knees before him and saying, Lord, have mercy on my son. He is an epileptic and is very ill, and he often falls into the fire and often into the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they couldn't cure him. And Jesus answered and said, O unbelieving and perverted generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me. And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out of him, and the boy was cured. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, Why could we not cast it out? And he said to them, Because of the littleness of your faith, for truly I said to you, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, Move from here to there, and it shall move. Nothing will be impossible for you. And then we have verse 21, and in your Bibles, if you have any Bible but the King James, it's going to be in parentheses, italics, something. This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. That's likely not in the original text. The textual evidence for this verse is not strong, but it was in the best manuscripts the King James translators had available to them. Much better manuscripts have been discovered since the King James was translated. So, I'm not in any way disparaging the King James. It still stands as the great achievement, probably, of human letters. But, the Dead Sea Scrolls have been found. Codex Sinaiticus and Vaticanus have been found. The best manuscripts for translating the Bible have been found since 1611. And that verse is probably not in there and really doesn't fit with the meaning. Jesus' reaction is swift and irritated. And he's not irritated at the man. He's irritated at his disciples. And he's not yelling at the man for bringing his son to him. He's upset with his disciples for not being able to help this man who was desperate, for not being able to continue on their own for the brief time he was on the mountain. And anybody that thinks that your kid should be a little more mature than they are and has come home and thought to yourself or said to them, I can't leave you alone for 10 minutes, knows how he feels, and understands why he's expressing himself in this way. And so Jesus immediately gives the boy back to his father whole. And, and then the disciples want to know, what did we do wrong? And I appreciate the disciples, and I think it shows some progress on their part that they do seek Jesus out afterwards to say, tell us what we did wrong. Walk us through this. And Jesus says plainly, it was the littleness of your faith. And I think they're going to have to learn that lack of confidence in themselves can be an expression of lack of faith in Jesus. Because the power they have to heal, they have been given by Jesus, and they have been commissioned to heal by Jesus. And so doubting themselves in the face of this extreme case is a way of doubting Jesus. And I think that's why he's so frustrated. And I really appreciate that they wanted to know. Explain to us, how did we not do this right? And Jesus did. And says to us, if we have faith, then everything we need to do we'll be able to do, because he will empower us to do it. Okay, we're going to pick up with some more things that Jesus tells them about his future, and we'll pick up there with verse 22 next time.